Hello, everybody. This is Axter99, another news story that has me shaking my head and absolutely baffled and pretty upset about how far some people will stick their nose into other people's private business and permanently scar somebody's record and livelihood. So what we have here is we have an article that I found about a mother was visited by Child Protective Services up in Canada, which is actually the Child and Family Services up there in Manitoba. And this article here basically talks about, a mother's kids were playing in her own fenced-in backyard. And somebody called Child Protective Services on her for her not supervising her children while they were alone in her fenced-in backyard. Now, Jackie Kendrick is the Canadian mother in question. She's a stay-at-home mom whose blatant disregard, this article says, for her children's safety, I think this is being sarcastic, allowed her to justify letting her 10, 5, and 2-year-old children play in their fenced-in backyard, without her. Now, some neighborhood hero decided to take matters into their own hands, watching kids play in their own backyard, and actually called the Winnipeg Department of Child and Family Services, who in turn sent a social worker to her house. She was then treated with a barrage of questions about her parenting, how she disciplines her kids, and whether or not she drinks and does drugs. Can you imagine how embarrassing that would be? And even though Kendrick and the family's home ultimately checked out, the family will now live with a permanent record of a Child Family Services investigation on her because of some knucklehead, douchebag, loser, idiot who called Child Protective Services on this lady for letting her kids play in her own fenced-in backyard. This is baffling to me. So, again, this article here pretty much then goes on to talk about how, kids should be able to play and walk from home from school without fearing they're going to be picked up by the cops. And parents should be able to confidently send their kids out into a world that's never been safer without fearing, the Child Protective Services or Child Family Services showing up at their door asking questions and, harassing them. And, as more and more people whip themselves up online about the dangers of the world and irresponsible parents who don't carry out a child-sized hamster ball with them at all times. Very stupid and wrong ideas about child safety and environment the children we live in can be very good ones. And we've all seen this. We've all seen this, I think, firsthand if you've lived any years in life at all. We've all seen, I know I have, a mother in a grocery store, the mall, or whatever, and they have a child that's throwing a complete tantrum, in the basket or whatever. And we've all seen a parent get upset and either yell at their kid or give their kid a perfectly safe swat on the bottom. And some other person decides to pick up their phone and call Child Protective Services. Oh my God, this poor 3-year-old brat, kid throwing a bratty kid throwing a tantrum, got a swat in the butt. I'm going to call Child Protective Services on this parent. Unbelievable to me that we have people trying to be such a hero and trying to stick their nose into other people's business so much that they're doing stuff like this, like calling Child Protective Services on a mother who lets her kids play in their fenced-in backyard. Now, when I read this story, on this article here, it doesn't have any pictures really of, the actual mother or the kids or anything. I was asking myself questions like, why? Maybe we're missing something, Maybe the backyard was like a junkyard and had a bunch of old torn up cars and, dangerous hazards in the backyard that the kids were playing around. Maybe the backyard was full of 6-foot-tall sticker weeds. I don't know. So I really felt like something was missing from this article. So what I did is I went ahead and Googled the information and the lady's name and pulled up this local news report of the story of how the Manitoba Child Family Services will not erase the file of a mother who lets their kids play in their backyard. Now, I will link both of these articles in the description down below if you guys want to go check these out. I'm not going to play this video here in full because, you know, copyright concerns and stuff like that. But what I will do is I want to go ahead and show you guys a little bit of the video here. And I want to show you, there's the mother right there because they actually interviewed her. There she is again.
Started talking to me about something about a well-being check. Didn't click to what she was talking about at all.
The lady with...
Wow. So there she's talking about, you know, we're pretty surprised to actually get a visit by the Child Family Services. And what they did here is they even show the backyard that we're talking about. Yeah, there's the actual backyard right there. You know, and it showed in from the start a picture of the...
From school to play.
But I certainly didn't see in any video, and I'm sure the news would have shown us if there had been, junkyard cars back in the back or something like that. All right, so here is actually the yard. You can see it from the front side here, kind of a cyclone fence here, and then there's wooden fences in the back. I see nothing there that looks, dangerous or anything like that. And this story is baffling to me at the fact that somebody would actually call Child Protective Services for kids being unsupervised in the backyard. And, I mean, like I say, we've seen this all the time, but this certainly doesn't look like a dangerous place for a 2, 5, and a 10-year-old to play while the mom is looking on from inside, through the windows as she does, daily chores and housework and washing the dishes or whatever. If one of the kids does get in danger, the mother is certainly going to hear it and be able to run back there. It's not like she left the kids home alone in the backyard while she left. That wasn't the complaint filed with the Child Family Services. No, somebody just saw kids playing in the backyard. They're like, oh my gosh, the mother's not back there watching them. I'm going to call Child Family Services. This is unreal. Absolutely unreal to me. So I want to know what you guys have to say about this. What do you guys think about, what are your stories about, Child Family Services or Child Protective Services being called in situations that are totally ridiculous? I know pretty much everybody out there that's probably an adult has some kind of experience or experiences with this over dramatic, over protective, over nosy society that we live in, where, a mother can't even yell at her kid for throwing a tantrum in a grocery store without getting the Child Protective Services called on her. Granted, there are situations, that Child Protective Services does need to be called. For example, a 105-degree day. If somebody goes in the grocery store and leaves their 2-year-old baby or whatever out in the back seat of the car with all the windows rolled up, on a super hot day, that's certainly a situation that can be threatening to a child. For one reason, no parent is there to actually supervise that kid, that kind of thing. But this situation here is just totally ridiculous, if you ask me. Now, it does remind me, years ago, I remember driving to work on, I think it was a Monday morning, and I was driving to work, and I was listening to my local radio station here in Boise, Idaho, and they were talking about how it was around the 4th of July or whatever, and it was talking about how over the 4th of July weekend, there was a 4th of July parade, and it was talking about how a young mother here in Boise had, 2 young kids, like a 3-year-old kid and like a baby infant or whatever. And the 3-year-old or whatever, while the mother was attending to getting a bottle or whatever for the infant in the stroller, and she was, outside by a street where the parade was taking place, the mother was getting the young infant, settling her in and giving her a bottle or a pacifier or whatever, and taking care of the infant. Well, the 3-year-old kid decided to run out in the street, ran out in the middle of the street. The mother saw by the time the mother looked up and saw the kid running out in the middle of the street, she got onto her kid and ran out there in the street and, basically yelled at her kid, you can't do that or whatever. And, kind of yelled at him pretty firmly. No spanking involved, nothing like that. Just pretty much yelled pretty firmly at her kid for, do not run out in the street. What are you doing? And brought the kid back to the curb. This is again is at a 4th of July parade. And the news report was the fact that somebody else saw this mother scolding her kid for running out in the road and, taking them by the hand and bringing them back to the side of the road. Again, no spanking, no physical, anything was involved. And somebody saw that and called Child Protective Services on this young mother. And, and they was talking about how anytime Child Protective Services is called for any situation, they have to investigate it. And so same kind of situation, the mother was harassed and had, people showing up, in front of everybody there at the 4th of July parade, asking her questions and all this stuff, in a hugely embarrassing situation by somebody sticking their nose way too far and calling the police or Child Protective Services on this young mother for getting their kid out of the middle of the road. Oh my God, how dare a woman do that? And that is a story I heard on the radio years ago around the 4th of July. And the irony here is, while I was shaking my head while I listened to the radio report about this, as I was talking about it, I shit you not, the very next day while I'm driving to work, about the same time, same radio station, they talked about a situation where somebody wasn't paying enough attention to a kid, and it was talking about a guy, I think it was like a 10-year-old kid, went with his uncle out four-wheeling, kind of out in the desert around here in Boise, Idaho, and they went, four-bying or whatever, kind of out in the countryside. And the uncle and the kid were both on the same four-wheeler, and then something happened with the four-wheeler and it quit running as they was out in the desert or whatever. And the man was so busy working on the engine of the four-wheeler, trying to get it working, that he really wasn't paying attention to his 10-year-old nephew that well. And so by the time he actually looked up and quit what he was doing out here in the middle of the desert, he saw that his nephew was nowhere around and started yelling for his name and looking for him and kind of panicking and everything like that. They said he spent 30 minutes, I remember, looking for his nephew all around, calling out his name, before he finally decided to call the cops. And the cops were, sent a rescue team out to search for him or whatever. And when they found the 10-year-old kid had fallen off of a cliff and had died on impact from the fall. And it was just ironic to me that one day after another, we talk about somebody being, a mother was called by, had somebody call the police or Child Protective Services on her for doing the right thing and making sure her kid got out of the street and scolding the kid. And then the very next day, we have a situation where that uncle should have definitely paid a little more attention and should have given that kid a scolding for wandering away. Scolding to that kid probably would have saved his life. So, I just always remember how the irony was of listening to those two reports that were so different, and thinking to myself, man, you really can't get upset for parents scolding their kids. At least they care enough to scold or spank their kids, and other people need to keep their damn nose out of it if they see a parent scolding their kids, as long as they're not, doing something obviously over violent, like slapping them in the face or something like that in public, yeah. But a swat on the butt, I've had a few spankings in my life as a kid, and it never hurt me. And I know I've given my kids a couple of swats when they were younger. It's been many, many years now, but they're still fine, and they aren't hurt from, a spanking on the butt. And in fact, there's a lot of truth in the notion that when you have kids and they act up or whatever, it definitely hurts the parent a hell of a lot more to swat the kid than it does the kid. It hurts their feelings, but no parent likes to have to go there and spank their kids. I guarantee you that. But anyway, I want to know what you guys have to say about this. I'll try to find a link to the article of the kid that fell off the cliff and was out with his uncle four-bying. I'll try to find that article and provide that link down below, but I'll definitely provide links to these two articles here about this Canadian mother who had the Child Family Services call on her for letting her kids play in the backyard. In the meantime, I want to know what you guys have to say. Be sure you rate my video. Be sure you comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Even if it's completely different than what I'm thinking here, I'd like to read your comment. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is Zaxter99. Take care.